About 5 months ago, I covered the story of the 8 Passengers YouTube channel and all of the evils that were going on behind the scenes. 8 Passengers was a YouTube channel that had over 2 million subscribers. It was a popular family channel that showcased a strict style of parenting. That's what it became known for. But the word strict doesn't really cover it. That's a huge understatement. It was really alarming to a lot of viewers because they were treating their family like they were in the Marine Corps. They ruled their family with an iron fist. And it eventually came out that the children in these videos were being abused. And 5 months ago, the story broke. One of the children freed themselves, escaped the house, went over to the neighbors, who then contacted the authorities, and after an investigation, found some horrific shit was going on with this family. Mainly, the mother, Ruby Frank, abusing her children. Ruby Frank also had an accomplice named Jody Hildebrandt, and together the two of them put these children through unspeakable evils. And today, I have an update to share with all of you because they have been sentenced. Ruby Frank was apparently sobbing at the sentencing and blamed the child abuse on being deceived into thinking the world was evil. I don't understand that thought process at all. She was deceived into thinking the world was an evil place, thus she had to be evil herself. You're the evil, Ruby. You are the one who knocks. The fuck you talking about? She had the gall to try and paint herself as a victim almost, making claims that she was manipulated and morally confused and it ended up with her turning into this child abuser. It's ridiculous. But luckily the crocodile tears from this brain-dead strategy here didn't do much to help her. She was sentenced to 4 to 60 years in prison. She pled guilty along with her associate to abusing 2 of Frank's children. However, neither woman will serve more than 30 years in prison because of a Utah law that prohibits consecutive sentences exceeding that. Moments before a Utah District Court judge sentenced Frank to consecutively serve 1 to 15 years behind bars for each of the 4 counts of aggravated child abuse, Frank tearfully told the court she never meant to harm the children. Which makes absolutely no sense. She obviously knew what she was doing was harming the children because she would deprive them of food, water, a place to sleep, and the children were even beaten, among other horrible things. All things that can't necessarily be confused with just building character or something like that. Can't possibly be just written off as strict parenting. This isn't one of those situations where you'll see people come out of the woodwork to defend it. They were just spanking their kids. It helps discipline them. Put some hair on their chest. I remember when Peepaw took me out back and made me gargle a glass of motor oil and nails in order to turn into a man, and look how I turned out. It's nothing like that. She would beat her kids and left them in states of malnourishment. It's so heinous what Ruby and Jody inflicted upon these children. And that Utah law that prohibits them from serving that full, potentially 60-year sentence really sucks here because they deserve life in jail for what they've done here. The reason why there's a huge range of 4 to 60 years is because there's still one more step where another board is going to ultimately decide how much time they should spend there. And if the board members are watching, it better be the maximum. Anything shy of the maximum is an affront to justice. Heavens to Betsy, I tell you, if they end up only serving 4 years for these actions, I'm gonna have a conniption. You would be enabling monsters to get away with it. And that is an unforgivable sin on your part. You would be condemning yourself to hell for that. You'd be dining down there with Lucifer in the afterlife if you let them get away with this and only get 4 years of prison time. So the Business Insider article dives a bit more into Frank's behavior during this. So she was saying that she was deceived and had a distorted version of reality that went largely unchecked. She then just starts blabbering to try and prove that she had a distorted view of reality, saying, "I was led to believe that this world was an evil place filled with cops who control, hospitals that injure, government agencies that brainwash, church leaders who lie and lust, husbands who refuse to protect, and children who need abuse." Let me pause real quick. Ruby, if this was your view of the world, why wouldn't you want to rise above that and be the exact opposite of that perspective? So you're viewing the world through your stupid glasses, whatever. You got your fucking moron dunce hat on, whatever. Why wouldn't you want to be the exception? Why wouldn't you want to be the one that's loving and nurturing their children? Why wouldn't you want to be the one that's not evil in this evil world you believe you live in? That doesn't make any sense. You are just yapping about fucking nothing. This is a nothing burger of a statement. It is once again just her trying to paint herself as almost some kind of victim of deceit. Now, I don't know if this next part is her just putting on a facade, faking self-awareness, or if she really does finally understand that she is the big bad here, and that it is all her fault, but she says that it was her choice to believe and behave this paranoia. It culminated in a criminal activity, and she stands ready to take accountability, and then says at the end, I can see now over the past 4 years I was in a deep undercurrent that led us to danger. I would never have led you to darkness knowingly. I was so disoriented that I believed dark was light and right was wrong. I would do anything in this world for you. To me, this feels like hollow words, because the only thing she ever did in the world for her children was keep them in a state of malnourishment, fear, and misery. I really get the impression that Ruby is a manipulator. I think what she's trying to do here is put on this act of remorse. I really get the impression, through learning what I have about this case now, that Ruby would do anything to keep herself out of trouble. But I think deep down she isn't really remorseful of her actions. I don't think she existed in this year-long disoriented state that led her to abusing her kids for this long period of time. She was so proud of the way that she handled her family, she would post about it frequently on YouTube and defend it as like a strict parenting style. So I really think she's not remorseful and just desperately trying to save her own ass. Also, the next thing she said about her willingness to sacrifice all for her children being masterfully manipulated into something very ugly, once again reads to me as her trying to pass the blame. Now, throughout a lot of this, it seems that Ruby is trying very hard to play like the deceived victim here, and Jody kind of being like the puppet master behind it. Jody was the one that was really kind of isolating Frank, keeping her away from her husband and all of these other things, and making sure that her morality was constantly confused. So it really just seems like Frank's strategy was to push a lot of that onto Jody, where she was the Frankenstein who made Ruby into a monster. Allegedly, Ruby had been made to believe that Hildebrandt had insight to offer a path to continual improvement, and eventually it twisted into something heinous, which resulted in all of the abuse. Frank's lawyer even outright said that she was manipulated by Hildebrandt, saying that Hildebrandt systematically isolated her from extended family, older children, and her husband, and gave her a distorted sense of morality. Even though, like I said, Ruby Frank is a child abuser who I also believe to be a manipulator as well. So Jody also is evil, let's not forget. So speaking of Jody, she received the same prison sentence as Ruby. Jody will be facing 4 to 60 years in prison as well. Again, that's up to the board to decide exactly how long, and I'm hoping they make the right decision and give her and Ruby the maximum amount of time in prison. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the 8 passengers abuse case, there's going to be a quick summary that I'll go through here. So in August, one of the children, the 12-year-old son, climbed through a window from Hildebrandt's house to get help for himself and his 10-year-old sister, which prompted a neighbor to call the police. And at the time, the police described the child as emaciated and injured with duct tape around his ankles and wrists. The prosecutor said Miss Frank and her business partner held 2 children ages 9 and 11 turning 12 in a concentration camp-like setting. The children were regularly denied food, water, beds to sleep in, and virtually all forms of entertainment. The children were beaten, bound, forced to do manual labor in the sweltering heat, and emotionally abused. Both children had extensive physical injuries from the abuse that required hospitalization when they were found, and the injuries from the bindings to the 12-year-old were particularly awful. There's more information about some of the abuse that she would inflict upon her children. She kicked her son, held his head underwater, covering his nose and mouth so he couldn't breathe. All kinds of horrible things that I don't think I need to keep going into detail on. You get the idea. Ruby and Jody are monsters. Plain and simple. Now I want to briefly discuss the husband, Kevin. So, as you've just learned, Jody had urged them to separate. She kept Ruby isolated from him. In order to save their marriage, Jody suggested that they separate, so Kevin eventually moved out and stopped communicating with his family at Jody's direction. Now, social workers and police were called to the family home multiple times in recent years, but there are no formal accusations. Kevin has made statements through his lawyer, Randy Kester, and has stated, the treatment these children received at the hands of those whom the children had a right to trust was horrific and inhumane both physically and psychologically. Kevin remains focused on the rehabilitation of these sweet and vulnerable children so that they might return to a normal life as soon as possible. So it sounds like he had no idea what was happening there due to being separated from the family like that. When I initially covered this story, I didn't know that he was away from the rest of the family and completely ceased communication altogether, so I guess that would explain how he'd be in the dark. But if I'm being honest, I'm extremely surprised that he wouldn't see his children a single time throughout this long period of abuse. Like, if he saw them one time, he would immediately know what's going on, because the neighbor, the authorities, they were able to immediately see something was wrong. They were in a malnourished, emaciated state. There was, the bruises, like so much that you would immediately see and you can't be oblivious to. It'd be impossible to be oblivious to. You can't ignore it. You would know. I'm not trying to accuse him of anything here. I'm just saying it is a little weird that he wouldn't see these children throughout this long period of the abuse they endured. I understand Jody told them to separate and to stop talking, but I can't imagine someone just willingly doing that without checking in occasionally. Especially because they're still together. Those are still his children too. You know what I mean? But anyway, I am happy to see that Ruby and Jody will be facing prison time for this. Hopefully a lot of prison time for this, because it is heinous. What they've done is unforgivable. And I think even 30 years, if they get the maximum sentence, is a light sentence for this shit. This is awful stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to give you an update to this story. That's really about it. So yeah. All of you know I'm a huge wrestling enthusiast. I absolutely love it more than Garfield loves lasagna. So much so that we actually have our own wrestling league, the Moist Wrestling League, and we even dropped our most recent episode a few days ago. This isn't meant to be a plug for it or anything. This is actually a really serious topic. The reason I mention that is because I'm just showcasing my passion for this craft. And for the longest time now, many decades, there has been this stain in the wrestling industry with a boogeyman that sits atop the food chain. His name is Vince McMahon. He is a cockroach that no amount of pest control can seem to get rid of. I'm confident even if you don't follow wrestling closely, you know Vince McMahon. He is extraordinarily wealthy and he has infested tons of other things even outside of just the wrestling industry. And this man is downright evil. He has a laundry list of deplorable, disgusting, heinous acts that would make the devil flinch. I've talked about him at length quite a bit on streams and even in a couple of videos in the past, so I'm not going to be focusing on his sins from the past here. I highly encourage all of you to just Google his name. It's not hard to find any of this information. It's all just right there, out in the open, right there at your fingertips. It is horrible stuff. I'm not talking about just like some drama where he was mean behind the scenes, which of course he was. I'm talking about covering up crimes, sexual misconduct. The list goes on and on and on, seemingly no end. And that's just what we know. There's probably still tons and tons of skeletons in that fucking closet. But anyway, the reason I'm talking about Vince McMahon again today is he is now at the center of another massive lawsuit here that has actually forced his hand and had him resign from his position at the WWE/UFC. They recently merged a multi-billion-dollar deal, and Vince McMahon, in light of all of this, has stepped down. The information comes from someone named Janelle Grant, who worked at the WWE's headquarters and is accusing the company's founder, Vince McMahon, of sexual assault, sex trafficking, and physical abuse in the lawsuit that was filed on Thursday. According to the lawsuit, Grant alleged that McMahon promised a job and later promotions at WWE in exchange for sex, and the lawsuit also includes allegations that McMahon trafficked her to other men inside and outside of the company, and there is a couple of names that get dropped that are some very big, alarming names, obviously. Now, even if you're not part of the wrestling community, I bet you've heard some buzz about this lawsuit because some text messages allegedly leaked from it, as well as some of the claims in the lawsuit are extraordinarily disturbing. Like, it is some depraved shit. And I mean shit, literally. One of the big parts of this lawsuit that was popping off on Twitter, like general Twitter, was this section where Miss Grant is talking about a threesome that McMahon put her in. And she says, early in the encounter, McMahon immediately directed Miss Grant to lay down on her back in a supplicating position. While straddling over her, McMahon defecated on Miss Grant's head. McMahon left to shower off, but he instructed Miss Grant to remain in place with excrement in her hair and to continue performing for his friend. While Miss Grant requested protection, none was offered. McMahon and physical therapist actively continued with the threesome and directed Miss Grant's sexual performance for around an hour and a half while she was left covered in feces. Absolutely sickening and sadly not surprising behavior from Vince McMahon. I believe this is only the tip of the iceberg. I think this is the first domino to fall, and there's going to be a lot more information that comes out about some of the degeneracy, some of the crimes and awful shit that was going on behind the scenes under Vince McMahon here. Now, I saw quite a few people caught off guard by this, surprised to learn that Vince McMahon is a bad guy. They were wondering how this stayed buried, or how any of the sexual misconduct allegations didn't surface sooner. Like, how was it all kept a secret? I had to do a bit of a double take when I saw that. I got fucking stun-locked for a second. Now, of course, it's no one's fault. I don't blame anyone for not knowing about Vince McMahon's past. Like, if you're not an active wrestling fan, there's a really good chance you just didn't know any of this about him. But the only secret here is that there was no secret. Everyone knew about Vince McMahon's sexual degeneracy. Vince McMahon's sexual degeneracy is about as much of a secret as smoking cigarettes being bad for your health. This fucking ghoul paid nearly $15 million in hush money to quiet 4 women who were bringing up claims of sexual misconduct against him that had occurred over a period of 16 years. And that's actually why he previously stepped down. Now, of course, he stepped back up into a prominent position with the company after the merger with the UFC, and now he is stepping down again, once again, from sexual misconduct claims. So it's just never really been a secret that this decaying corpse, this fucking revolting gremlin of a man, is a horrifying piece of shit. It's just more people are opening their eyes to Vince McMahon being this fiend. Thanks to Janelle Grant's lawsuit, really making waves and highlighting a lot of previously unknown things like the sex trafficking and some of the other names that were included here to show how deep this rabbit hole goes and how awful all of it was. Now, sexual misconduct is something Vince McMahon calls home, so this isn't his first rodeo, and he tried to cover his own ass. Not literally, because he shit on someone's head, but legally tried to cover himself by trying to pressure Grant into signing a non-disclosure agreement in exchange for payments over several years totaling $3 million after their relationship and employment ended. So he was trying to silence her, to make sure she wouldn't, blow the lid off of this. Now, I'm no lawyer, I'm no expert, but I don't think a non-disclosure agreement protects you in the case of crimes. Like, I don't think if you're sex trafficking someone, you can have all of your victims sign an NDA and then they can't speak about it, you're safe. And if they do speak about it, they're the ones in trouble. I just can't imagine a world where if Grant signs that non-disclosure agreement and then goes forward with bringing this information to light, that she would face punishment for it. Like, I can't even picture that kind of lunacy. Like, listen, ma'am, we're really sorry about that sex trafficking thing. That's bad stuff. But you violated your NDA. And breaking an NDA is so much worse. You're going to prison. You're going to the slammer for that. You don't violate the contract. It's sacred. It's binding. Like, I just don't think an NDA protects you in the case of a crime being committed. Again, I'm not an expert, though. The only NDAs I've ever signed were to play a video game early, not poop on someone's skull, among other horrible, horrible acts. Allegedly. It's fucking scary stuff what was going on behind the scenes at the WWE with Vince McMahon. The parent company has issued a bit of a statement here. The parent company is TKO Group Holdings, and they said that McMahon doesn't control TKO or oversee day-to-day operations at the WWE, and that while this matter predates our TKO executive team's tenure at the company, we take Ms. Grant's horrific allegations very seriously and are addressing this matter internally. And a spokesperson for Vince McMahon also made a statement and said that the lawsuit was replete with lies, obscene made-up instances that never occurred, and a vindictive distortion of the truth. He will vigorously defend himself. I wish he would vigorously try and dive into a wrestling ring and tear both of his quads again. This is an evil man, and he has been evil for the entire time he has been with the company. And more people are starting to see this now. He is a fucking stain in the industry. I know there is still a lot of Vince McMahon fans because they separate art from the artist. He plays a character in the WWE, the commissioner, and he has been kind of iconic in the scene. I get that. Like, there is a lot of great WWE moments that, unfortunately, Vince McMahon is there for and was a big part of. Like, he played the role well. But as a person, he is terrible and a horrible person to have at the position of power that he does in the industry. He shouldn't be in the industry. He shouldn't even be outside of a fucking jail cell for the things he's done. Like, I can't separate art from the artist when it comes to something like this. I just can't do it. I know there are people that are, and I'm not, like, mad at you for it or anything, but I can't. He is just absolute trash, scum, the lowest of the low, and I will, of course, be keeping my eyes on this lawsuit as everything continues to develop here. I just wanted to give you like the very bare bones of it, like the basics. There is so much to it. I urge anyone out there that's curious to take a look, but just fair warning, it is disturbing. It's very not pleasant to read. So yeah, just wanted to talk about it a bit. That's it. So yeah. I just watched an extremely interesting case presented by the Law and Crime Trial Network that I just had to share with all of you because it really feels like the plot line to a late 90s soap opera. It's got an evil wife, and let me tell you, she's a real battle axe, and she's hatched a nefarious plan to poison her husband for life insurance money, allegedly. I hate that I have to use the word here because the overwhelming amount of video evidence and everything makes it very clear that that's what was going on, but apparently you gotta say that word when talking about something like this. But anyway, that's not where the whole story stops because the husband becomes aware of it, but can't act on it right away, so has to continue to play along with the woman that's actively trying to kill him. And then when he eventually takes it to authorities, they initially don't act on it, so then he has to gather even more evidence. It's just so fucking wild, and I just have to show this to all of you, because this really does feel almost make-believe. It feels like something Darman would write if instead of making, don't judge a book by its cover videos, he made murder mysteries.
A military wife is now charged with attempted first-degree homicide after her husband allegedly caught her on camera pouring bleach into his coffee maker. He says it was all to get life insurance benefits.
It really does make me giggle every time allegedly is thrown out in a case like this where you can actually just watch it happen on the fucking Jumbotron. And especially with this one because the husband was super thorough with all of the hidden cameras he set up. So you can get like a 360-degree video of all the poisoning attempts. You got every goddamn cinematic angle imaginable. And yet still allegedly poisoning attempts. Again, I fully understand why they have to keep saying that word here because she hasn't been found guilty in court yet of all of the charges. But I mean, it's pretty clear. The answer to this game of Clue is Feliciano in the kitchen with the bleach and coffee maker. Like, we can tell.
The man, quote, suspected someone was tampering with his coffee, and in May 2023, while still in Germany, he set up a camera in his house. The husband alleged his wife used bleach as a form of poison, storing the chemical under the sink.
This is one of many videos that capture her pouring bleach into his coffee pot. So he became alert to something a bit off about his coffee and suspected tampering with it. And I imagine he was able to taste something was wrong immediately. Bleach is like one of the most agitating chemicals you can ever fucking ingest. Like, coffee is not going to disguise it. It's not like the perfect Trojan horse to deliver bleach into your system. You'd probably take a single sip and immediately go, pooey, yucko, wow, like, ouch. That doesn't taste like coffee, it tastes like fucking poison. You would have better luck shitting into his coffee pot and hoping he doesn't notice. There's at least a chance coffee can mask poop, but not bleach. Like, even if you have no taste buds, you would probably feel something is wrong with your coffee with bleach being mixed into it. So, immediately, I imagine, he was tipped off that something was very awry here. So he set up the camera. I don't know if he immediately suspected it was his wife. Maybe he thought there was some kind of like burglar coming in to fuck with him and pour bleach into his coffee pot or something. I don't know if he immediately started to point fingers at his wife. I imagine he probably did because, I mean, who the fuck else is going to break in there and pour coffee or pour bleach into the coffee? Unless it's like the Tooth Fairy out for revenge or something. So I don't know how surprised he was to see that, but I still imagine that that was traumatizing to know that the person that you are married to, the person that is the most important person in your life, is actively trying to kill you.
Court documents state that at the time, during May 2023, the husband, quote, stopped drinking the coffee but continued to pretend to drink it as he did not want to make a report of this while in Germany. He said he knew his wife would continue poisoning him and wanted to submit a report while in the US.
This is such an interesting conundrum. So he didn't want to make the report while in Germany and continues to fake drink the coffee, playing a game of pretend here. And then also, I assume, pretending that everything's okay in the marriage between them, even though he knows in the back of his head, his fucking wife is trying to kill him. And his wife doesn't know that he knows, so she continues to make attempts to poison him. When I try and picture this situation in my head, I immediately just start thinking about the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but without, like, the guns. So instead of, like, dumping lead at each other, shooting at each other, it's his wife really insisting on trying the coffee. A new recipe, perhaps. So, and he's just like, oh, this is good, very good, but he knows.
1 month later, in late June, the family returned to the United States and was stationed at an Air Force base in Tucson, Arizona. At that point, additional cameras were set up. Video captures Feliciano Johnson pour something into the coffee pot and look over her shoulder to see if anyone is watching. By early July, her husband reported his findings to the Tucson Police Department.
So this ruse continued for over a month, with the husband pretending to keep drinking the coffee, giving his best Oscar-winning acting performance. Honey, this coffee is so good. Wow, delectable. Rubbing his tummy, all of that. I also can't help but wonder if he tried to, like, mess with her a little bit. Not trying to poison her, obviously, but, like, make her believe that the poison was working. Like, did he start faking a sickness or something? Did he start, making it seem as though he was falling ill in order to see how she'd respond? Like, he just, puts a thermometer in his mouth and he's, like, looking real pale and he's like, oh, babe, I don't know what's going on. I'm not feeling too good. Making a bunch of, like, coughing noises to see how she reacts to it, to try and catch her with, like, joy in her eye that her plan is working. Or if he just simply kept drinking this, or pretending to drink the coffee, and his wife must have thought that he was fucking immortal, just legitimately immune to poison. Which is a pretty scary thought, and pretty concerning considering he lived with her and went through this for over a month now, with someone actively trying to murder him. And if she really thought that bleach had no effect on him, like he was just built different, bleach doesn't work, I just would be worried that she'd try other things that maybe he didn't pick up on, or wouldn't have picked up on if it continued, you know what I mean? But anyway, he gathered all this evidence and then he brought it to the authorities.
Showed the officers at the front desk the video, but since you could not clearly see what she was pouring into the coffee maker, the report was taken with no follow-up. At that point, he purchased additional cameras disguised as fire alarms. He set them up in the laundry room and in the kitchen area where the coffee maker was located.
So it wasn't actionable evidence because they couldn't clearly see what she was pouring into the coffee maker. So the guy says, all right, fuck it, check this out then. You need more? I got you with more. So he sets up a ton of cameras, gets every possible angle here. He's got so many cameras set up, he could probably render his whole house in VR with this kind of setup. So he's got everything covered. Now you can clearly see that she's pouring bleach into the coffee maker in certain videos. And he even goes a step further by conducting his own at-home experiments to confirm his theory.
Normal. It smells. I can smell it. I can smell it. Soapy. Tea. You're gonna see purple. Boom.
Science, bitch. Now we're Breaking Bad here. So he's got even more proof, not only with the video evidence of his wife pouring bleach into his coffee pot, but now he is confirming the presence of the bleach in the coffee pot even after having it drained all day and all of that. Now he has an overwhelming amount of proof against his wife.
Feliciano Johnson was caught on camera multiple times, appearing to pour bleach in the laundry room, walking it into the next room, and then pouring it into the coffee maker. After collecting multiple videos that showed her allegedly pouring the bleach into the machine, Feliciano Johnson was arrested on July 18th.
I'm assuming she did all of this while the husband wasn't home because she is pouring the bleach in the laundry room and walking it to the kitchen, so literally walking through the house with bleach in her hand. If the husband ever saw that, she would immediately know that he would know that something is really fucking foul going on here. Why are you transporting bleach around the house? Like, what could possibly be the excuse, you know? Oh, babe, you're home. It's great to see you. What do you mean, why is the bleach in my hand? Oh, actually, I just wanted you to just take a peek at it real quick. Just tell me, does the bleach smell weird? Splash. You know, like, there's really not a whole lot of wiggle room for an excuse on why you're transporting bleach from the laundry room to the coffee maker. So, again, I assume he just wasn't present for it. But then it makes it really interesting watching the footage here because she keeps looking over her shoulder. So it's an interesting look into the human psyche and kind of just basic human instinct, where when you're doing something fucked up, when you're doing something diabolical, for some reason, you just can't help but double check your surroundings to make sure no one's peeking in on you, even when you're completely alone. Anyway, just something I felt like pointing out. Overall, I'm happy to see the husband didn't get poisoned, and I'm happy to see she got arrested and is now facing these charges here. So hopefully justice will be served. I can't imagine a world where all of this evidence is presented and they're like, inconclusive. It's fine. You're overreacting. You're out of order, Buster. Your wife was just making you some real nice coffee with the extra flavor juice to it. So I imagine she will likely face serious time for this. I mean, it's attempted first-degree homicide, apparently. So, or allegedly, excuse me. So yeah, I just wanted to share this story because I just found it to be super fascinating. But yeah, that's about it. So yeah. What I just learned about here has to be one of the most insane, vile plans I've ever heard of, and it was actually attempted. Two men were training for what has to be one of the most unhinged ideas ever thought of. Like, the Lord, when he gave humans brains, didn't think they'd be capable of concocting something so fucking absurd. I'm actually struggling to find the words to even set the stage here for what I'm about to show you, so I'll just instead use a hand gesture. It's a big thumbs down moment. This shit is foul.
A federal grand jury indicted two North Texas men accused of plotting to invade a foreign island, kill the men, and take the women as sex slaves.
Prosecutors say one of the men enlisted in the Air Force to get military training he thought he needed. Fox 4's Blake Hansen.
I know that intro hits you like a fucking knuckle sandwich because it's so preposterous, but it's actually just the tip of the iceberg here. And they left out a very big key detail. According to the official press release, these two lunatics were also planning to take the children as sex slaves as well. So these two Jeffrey Epstein commandos here were planning to invade an island nation, murder all of the men, and take the women and children as their sex slaves. And one of them literally joined the Air Force in order to receive training to better help them carry out this plan. This shit sounds like something P. Diddy would have cooked up while playing with G.I. Joe action figures or something. Like, these guys were very serious about this. They were actually doing everything they could to carry out this island invasion and murder and kidnapping.
In our newsroom tonight with these stunning allegations, Blake.
Yes, Stephen Heather, federal prosecutors say the suspects didn't plan to go it alone. In fact, the feds say they plan to recruit people who are homeless in Washington, D.C. to serve on their, quote, expeditionary force and take over a small Haitian island. The grand jury indictment handed up today charges 21-year-old Gavin Weisenberg from Allen and 20-year-old Tanner Thomas from Argyle.
Now, there's no picture of Tanner that's available at the moment, but the mugshot there that exists of Gavin, he looks like a psychopath. That guy looks like he has a screw loose. It looks like he is like biologically evolved to be the quintessential caricature of a freak that has these like crazy, heinous ideas. And like I said, this is something they took so seriously that they were even planning out how to recruit homeless people to join their ranks to storm the beaches of the island that they were going to invade so they could start slaughtering the men there.
With conspiracy to murder, maim, or kidnap in a foreign country, as well as a charge of production of child pornography.
I told you, that intro was just a crumb. That doesn't even scratch the surface to the depths of depravity that these two men has sunk to. Like, these are evil, rotten to the core fucking monsters. So there is also a charge of child pornography production here, which I imagine none of you are surprised to hear, given that these two men planned on kidnapping the women and children as sex slaves for themselves.
Record Joe Weisenberg was booked into the Collin County Jail in July. We've not been able to find a mugshot for Thomas. Prosecutors say he was in the U.S. Air Force at the time. The place they are accused of plotting to invade is called Gonave Island. It is part of the Republic of Haiti. It's not small. In fact, that island has about 87,000 residents. Prosecutors say Weisenberg and Thomas planned to lead that expeditionary force by sailboats to the island, murder the men, take control of the island, and then turn the women into sex slaves.
If you did whippets every second of every day for the entirety of your life, I don't think you could kill enough of your brain cells to hatch a plan this unhinged. They planned to lead an expeditionary force via sailboat to this island composed of these two, Gavin and Tanner, plus whatever homeless men they were able to rope into this scheme, and take on 87,000 people. These delusional piss stains thought they were built like Goku or something. That is crazy. Like, fucking Thanos would struggle to beat 87,000 people on his own. Like, it is so unbelievably outrageous that it's hard to even come to terms that this was something they were really trying to do. Like, I can't stress that enough, that this wasn't just some, like, crackpot crazy idea. They were taking steps to actually carry it out. Like, one of them joined the Air Force. And you know how they just mentioned that their plan was to go via sailboat? Well, get a load of this. They had planned all of that too. They were legitimately dedicating their lives to this invasion.
According to prosecutors, the feds say the plan dates back to August of last year. They say Weisenberg enrolled in a Rockwall Fire Academy to learn command and control protocols, but flunked out in February. And they say he then traveled to Thailand to learn how to sail, but didn't enroll in the school due to the cost.
Dipshit Gavin may have been unsuccessful in all of his endeavors, but he did try to learn things to contribute to the invasion effort that they were scheming. So he enrolled in a fire academy to try and learn command and control prompts. He flunked out. He then also was going to learn how to sail via courses in Thailand, but then didn't enroll because he couldn't afford to, I suppose, or was probably too busy spending his money on blow and chicken tendies. But he did, like, dedicate time to trying to learn these things for this invasion plan. His whole life was revolving around trying to be better equipped for this invasion effort that they were plotting.
The feds say Thomas, meanwhile, enlisted in the Air Force in January and in March changed his station assignment from Germany to Maryland to better coordinate the invasion and recruit the homeless population in D.C.
While Gavin was sucking the mean dick of failure, Tanner, on the other hand, was successful in enlisting in the Air Force and getting this military training to contribute to their efforts here. He changed his station so he could be better equipped to find homeless people to recruit for this too. Both of these men were legitimately dedicating their entire lives to this. This was something they were going to actually follow through on. Tanner moved to an area to better coordinate, plan, and recruit these homeless people for that plan. This is something they were going to do. Now, obviously, I'm sure you don't have to be a mathematician, you don't have to be, fucking Poindexter, a wizard with numbers, to know that if they did truly arrive at Gonav with the intent to murder all of the men there, they themselves would have been killed pretty quickly, I imagine, as they would anywhere in the world if they just come, like Yosemite Sam firing from the hip, just killing a bunch of people. They themselves would have been killed very quickly. But the fact is, they would have taken innocent people with them. And that is completely unacceptable. So even though under no circumstances would this invasion have ever actually gone the way they planned, it would have no doubt led to the loss of life.
We reached out to attorneys listed for Weisenberg and did not hear back. We could not find attorneys listed for Thomas. Prosecutors say they face up to life in prison if convicted on the conspiracy to murder charge.
I have a hunch that Tanner probably represented himself. I have no evidence to back up that thought process there, but these two sound just so fucking off their gourd that I actually think Tanner probably is representing himself here in this case. But anyway, they are facing potentially life in prison. 100% they need life in prison. Plus they also have that separate production of child pornography charge. Lock them away forever. Absolutely. By stopping them here, they prevented a tragedy from happening. No doubt in my mind. When I heard this, when I watched this segment here, I was stunned. This has to be one of the craziest stories I've learned about in quite a while. So I just wanted to put this on your radar. That's really about it. So yeah. Today we're going to be talking about a pure evil YouTuber that was just arrested for some truly heinous stuff. This is not a goofy topic at all. This is going to take that smile off of your face faster than if you had watched a James Corden clip. This is the story about Ruby Frank of the very popular parental advice slash parenting blogger slash family YouTube channel 8 Passengers. Which is already a really creepy name, by the way. 8 Passengers does sound like some kind of cult. 8 Passengers sounds like the title to a horror movie. And unfortunately, that's not far off, because the woman behind this YouTube channel, Ruby Frank, is basically a monster out of a horror film. Ruby Frank and her business partner, Jody Hildebrandt, were arrested this week, and they're being charged with 6 counts of child abuse. Now, Ruby wasn't alone with the 8 Passengers YouTube channel. Her husband, Kevin, was also prominently featured in there as well. But for some reason, he's not mentioned in any of this right now, aside from a couple of mentions that he's just trying to keep the family together and help the children through this difficult time with Ruby being arrested. But I can't imagine a world where Kevin was somehow oblivious to all of the abuse the children suffered in that household. There's no way Kevin didn't know what was happening. Unless he's an absolute fucking lobotomite zombie, there's no way he didn't know what the children are being subjected to. I just can't imagine a single multiverse possibility that Kevin is squeaky clean in this situation, just totally innocent, had no idea what was happening to the kids in that house. Especially considering in 2020, Kevin was front and center fighting on the front lines to defend himself and his wife against abuse allegations, defending their parental style. I'll go into a bit more detail on that situation a bit towards the end of the video, but basically, some viewers were really concerned for the safety of the children based on what was being presented in some of the 8 Passengers videos, as well as what was being discussed, such as taking away one of the kids' food privileges, as well as one of the kids' bedroom privileges, and eventually they tried to get CPS involved, and CPS did get loosely involved, but the whole time Kevin was defending the actions that they had been taking with their parenting. So I don't believe that he didn't know about all of the abuse that was being suffered in that household by the children. But since right now it's only Ruby and Jody who have been arrested, I'll focus on them. They go over some of the stories and videos that she would proudly post on her channel, where she just openly admits, proudly, almost bragging, about torturing her children. She built a reputation as being a strict parent with a strict parental style, but strict is not the right word for it. This isn't like some kind of teacher that's like, hey class, settle down, no fishy business, we got work to do here. And this isn't even strict like, you know, your fucking basic training drill sergeant or anything. This, the way she treats her children is like the way prisoners are treated at Guantanamo Bay. She fucking posted a video where she was laughing about not feeding her daughter any food because she was punishing her. And she even said that she hopes nobody gives her daughter any food because if she did, then the lesson wouldn't be learned. She was starving her daughter as a means of punishment. And it only gets worse. I learned about this on stream, so I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the clips and go over some of the stories that were shared. I think it's important to mention that this was not some small obscure channel. The content they were posting wasn't just being banished to the shadow realm immediately with no eyes ever being on it, no one ever seeing it. This was a huge channel. 8 Passengers had 2.5 million subscribers. I know it's become somewhat of a trend in journalism to try and like clickbait headlines with things like famous TikToker arrested for DUI and jiggling butt cheeks to Doja Cat Say So on the side of the road. And you read that and it's very eye-catching because it's like famous TikToker, oh shit, well who was it? And then you'll read the person's name in the article about the crime and then you'll check their TikTok page and it turns out they have 50 followers and all they do is speculate on anime power levels and it's like, well, not exactly a famous TikToker, but it's 2023 so everyone has some kind of social media presence and journalists will oftentimes just connect it to that. So famous TikToker does this or famous Twitter shitposter does that, even though they're not exactly a famous TikToker or this and that. But in this case, it really is a famous YouTuber, a very large YouTube channel that gave tons of parental advice for a very long time, had a very successful family vlog, and then even went on with Jody Hildebrandt to start doing life coaching and general life advice. All the while, she'd been abusing her children the entire fucking time. I don't know, there's something about that picture that's super eerie. It reminds me of something out of like Midsummer. A Utah mother known for chronicling her strict parenting style was arrested after one of her children ran to a neighbor's house seeking help. Her channel name was 8 Passengers. They had 2.2 million subscribers. Ms. Frank hosted the now-defunct YouTube channel 8 Passengers, where she posted videos about her parenting approach with her 6 children, including refusing them food as a form of punishment. Wait, and she did this on YouTube?
My kids are literally starving. I hesitate to say this because it's going to sound like I'm like a mean barbarian, but I told the kids, I said, I'm not even going to let you eat breakfast until you get your chores done.
The red flags were all there. She was hiding in plain sight. That's actual torture. You can't do that. Miss Frank and Miss Hildebrandt were each charged on Friday with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse, according to the Washington County Attorney's Office. Each count carries a maximum sentence of 15 years in prison and a fine up to $10,000. According to the affidavit, Miss Frank's 12-year-old son, identified as RF, climbed out of a window of Miss Hildebrandt's home and went to a neighbor's house on Wednesday morning asking for food and water. The child had duct tape on his ankles and wrists, as well as open wounds. He appeared to be emaciated and malnourished. This is some pure evil shit. The neighbor called the police, who then found Miss Frank's 10-year-old daughter, Eve, at Miss Hildebrandt's. She also appeared to be malnourished, the affidavit said. Both children were taken to the hospital. The boy was placed on a medical hold due to his deep lacerations from being tied up with rope and from his malnourishment, according to the affidavit. Oh my god. At one point, Miss Frank had 2.5 million subscribers to her channel, following the lives of her 6 children. In 2020, Chad Frank, then 15, told YouTube viewers in one family video that he had been sleeping on a beanbag for months and that he had lost his bedroom after playing a prank on his little brother. How did she get away with it for so long? If this was literally in their YouTube video. She, on camera in her TikTok or whatever, said that she denies her children food as a form of punishment, and then apparently one of the kids also revealed that he had lost bedroom privileges for months after playing a prank. How? How did this persist? This should have went straight to prison. Do not pass go. In one video recorded by Miss Frank and reposted to TikTok, she said her daughter Eve's teacher had called her to say Eve had come to school without lunch. Miss Frank said the teacher was uncomfortable with her being hungry, but that Eve was responsible for making her own lunch, and that the natural outcome is she is just going to be hungry. Hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch, because then she's not going to learn from it. And this is all on video. She said this on video. How was CPS not alerted sooner? Oh, and apparently there was even a bunch of petitions from the community to try and get them taken down because it was actual evidence of child abuse. But it looks like none of that was taken seriously. We've been trying to tell the police and CPS for years about this, and so glad they finally decided to step up. Kids are safe, but there's a long road ahead. Oh, this was one of the children. Sherry Frank, now a junior at BYU, posted about her mother's arrest on Instagram, saying justice is being served. So one of the kids was trying to alert CPS and the police and they didn't do anything? How would you not trust one of the victims of it? Especially when there's so much documented evidence on their own fucking YouTube channel. Now, I mentioned on stream how surprising it was that this hadn't happened sooner when she openly posted content about some of the abuse she was inflicting upon her children. And it turns out a lot of the community that was aware of this channel was actively trying to get CPS involved, especially when it came to that beanbag incident where one of the children made it clear that they had been sleeping on a beanbag for an extended period of time because they had lost their bedroom due to that prank that they had played on one of the siblings. So CPS did get loosely involved at some point, but Ruby was somehow able to brush them off and nothing came from it somehow, which blows my mind because This isn't one of those situations with hindsight being 2020. This isn't one of those things where you can just say, man, if we only knew then what we know now, we could have really helped them. Because this is so clear cut. Like, this should have been a no-brainer that something was wrong. For an authority figure to look at any of these videos, it should have been a massive, alarming situation. Fucking sirens should have been blaring. The second that Ruby was proudly gloating, wiggling her finger, celebrating her incredible parenting of just depriving her children of food as a punishment, that should have been enough to get authorities involved and learn about what was actually happening here with the Ruby Frank household. It's super infuriating that this went on for as long as it did, when a lot of people did keep trying to push this forward to CPS to get them to take action, knowing that something was wrong and knowing what Ruby was posting about and saying was not okay. It's not strict parenting, it's actual abuse. By every possible definition, this is not something where it's like, builds character, toughen up, sport, rub some dirt in it. You know, you're not getting breakfast. In fact, you're also not getting your bedroom. It's going to put some hair on your chest. You're going to learn something today. You know, it's not anything like that. It's fucking abuse. This isn't parenting. I can't believe that it went on for so long. I'm happy now finally something is being done, but I feel fucking horrible for the kids in this situation that they'd been let down not only by the person that's supposed to care for them more than anyone else in the world, their mother, but they were also let down by the authorities that are supposed to be trying to help them in an emergency situation. It shouldn't have taken this long. Ruby's sisters also have hundreds of thousands of followers, so they posted an Instagram statement that said, "For the last 3 years, we have kept quiet on the subject of our sister Ruby Frank for the sake of her children. Behind the public scene, we have done everything we could to try and make sure the kids were safe. We wouldn't feel right about moving forward with regular content without addressing the most recent events. Once we do, we will not be commenting on it further. Ruby was arrested, which needed to happen. Jody was arrested, which needed to happen. The kids are now safe, which is the #1 priority." I've just got to say that statement of "we kept quiet for the last 3 years for the sake of the children" doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because keeping quiet wasn't helping the children. They were being abused, and if you were aware of that, how the fuck would being quiet somehow help them? How is that doing everything you can behind the scenes to keep them safe? That's doing nothing. That is literally the Simpsons meme of "we've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas." Now, I guess it's possible they didn't know the extent of the abuse that the children were suffering, but even still, if you were aware of children being abused in any capacity, you should have been doing everything in your power to get the kids out of that situation. Being quiet doesn't get them out of the situation. That doesn't do anything to actually save them or keep them safe. You should have made a lot of noise and kept going to authorities over and over again, gathering as much evidence as possible to try and help those kids. And maybe they were. Like, this is, again, just a very short statement, so maybe they were. But them saying that they kept quiet for 3 years to keep them safe, it doesn't compute. Because that's not keeping the kids safe, that's keeping them locked in that prison with the monster. Now, as was mentioned by one of the daughters, there was a lot of attempts to get police and CPS involved that just didn't work. So it is possible that perhaps the sisters here were actively trying to do that and kept trying to get authorities involved unsuccessfully. It's just that saying you kept quiet for 3 years it really isn't clicking with me. I don't know why you would be quiet for 3 years if you were actively working to keep the kids safe. Let's imagine that one of the kids wasn't lucky enough to break free and escape through a window and get help from someone nearby. They'd still be tied up right now in that house, and you would still be being quiet. This fucking ridiculous silence is golden strategy didn't help the kids. The only person it helped was your sister, because it allowed her to keep abusing those children for 3 more years. And the only reason this even came crumbling down and she finally got arrested is because one of them broke free, covered in deep lacerations, and was able to get help so they could all be saved. Had that not happened, you would still be quiet and those kids would still be suffering. I know I'm getting pretty heated here, but this story is just infuriatingly evil. I am happy that Ruby and Jody have been arrested. I hope they get the absolute maximum sentence here. But I do still think there's other people that knew what was happening in that household that should also face very severe punishment for allowing that to happen and continue happening for as long as it did. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this. That's about it. So yeah. I went over to my family's house for dinner a couple nights ago, and my father was raving and couldn't stop talking about a case I'd never heard of that apparently has just wrapped up. The Alex Murdaugh murder case. And in fact, it extends beyond that. The entire Murdaugh family murders. This is a very high-profile case that I just hadn't heard of until my father started lecturing me on it like I had just taken a criminology course. He apparently followed every single piece of evidence that dropped. He watched every trial, everything. My dad studied the tits off of this case like he was going there to prosecute Alex Murdaugh himself. And it piqued my interest. It made me want to learn more about it. So I went to the best goddamn channel on YouTube for things like this, Legal Eagle. Legal Eagle recently made a full, beautiful breakdown going over every single piece of evidence and every single key point in the entire Murdaugh history. So I'm going to put a link to that in the description, but I just kind of wanted to share it with all of you because this is one of the more deep and disturbing cases I've learned about in quite a while. So I just wanted to share kind of the gist of it with all of you, but I highly recommend watching Legal Eagle's video on it if you want to learn the most about it and see how everything unfolded. You see the Murdaugh murders. So my dad just told me about that. I didn't know anything about it. And he was apparently embezzling money for a long time, a pathological liar, an oxy addict, and he snapped and killed his son and wife. My dad was telling me all about it, apparently. Or, not apparently, my dad was telling me all about it. Apparently, it was a wild case, and I didn't hear shit about it. Yeah, apparently the prosecutors had a video that the son had recorded that proved that Alex Murdaugh was lying about his whereabouts on the night of the murders. So I guess the story was they were killed at like the dog kennels on their property. Alex Murdaugh claimed that he wasn't there that night at the kennels, and he had like a couple alibis because they had his whole phone record. Apparently he called a ton of people to try and get a couple alibis. And eventually the prosecutors showed a video that his son had recorded literally minutes before he was murdered. His son he killed also got in a boat accident that killed a girl named Mallory Beach, and also was the only witness to his housekeeper dying, and he embezzled her life insurance. Oh, what the fuck?
Close. Los Angeles area double murder expert O.J. Simpson predicted that the Alec Murdaugh jury would acquit the Low Country lawyer of double murder. It turns out that Simpson's powers of prognostication don't really work for murders he wasn't directly involved in.
It wouldn't surprise me in the least if this guy beats this case.
So before I explain...
It's crazy. It is crazy. We have O.J. Simpson on Twitter dropping reaction videos, giving his opinion on how another murderer could potentially beat their case. That blows my mind.
Randolph Murdaugh Sr. was elected solicitor in 1920 and served until he was killed by a freight train in 1940.
Sounds like a murder. That sounds like an actual old western murder where they tied him to the train tracks. Don't know the situation, it literally just sounds like he was murdered.
Now, some people suspected that the freight train incident was a suicide because no one could figure out why Randolph's car stalled on the tracks. But Murdaugh Sr. was succeeded by his son, Randolph Murdaugh Jr., known as Buster, who held the position for 46 years,
cool
from
nickname.
1942. On two separate occasions, 20 years apart, he told jurors that if they didn't impose the death penalty on a criminal defendant, he would use his power as solicitor to release other rapists into the community. Yes, you heard that right.
What?
It's hard to imagine a worse thing a prosecutor could say in court, but I'm sure prosecutors have.
And he got to keep the position? He would make these threats like, okay, if he doesn't get the death penalty, 5 rapists will go into Gotham. He sounds like the Joker. What? elected official, so he just campaigns and pays off the right people. Yeah, but I'm sure there's still systems in place where if you're threatening to release rapists out of like a grudge, you can get fired. Like you can get like taken out. Like you lose your position, I would think. Because it was the 70s. It's not like rape was cool in the 70s either. I'm sure people weren't like rallying behind him like, yeah, that's fucking Buster right there. That's how Buster plays. Give the death penalty. Or 50 rapists. Buster, release 50 rapists into the neighborhood. The guy really had rapists in the queue to join the server. Oh, you're talking about Buster still, yeah. I'm just going to take a guess that the other Murdochs didn't use the same tactic.
Alex Murdaugh, the now convicted murderer, is Randolph III's son.
All of this information is to show you that the entire Murdaugh line is fucking evil, basically. Now that you're brought up to speed on where Alex Murdaugh comes from, let's talk about his kids, because his kids are no saints. Legal Eagle goes into more detail surrounding some of these cases, but I'd just like to give you a quick breakdown. If you want more information, obviously watch his video on it. But one of Alex's sons, Buster, who is named after, of course, Buster Murdaugh, who came before him, is actually a person of interest in a 2015 death. A young man named Stephen Smith was found dumped on a Hampton County road. There wasn't a whole lot of indicators to suggest that this was a vehicle crash, and in fact was even ruled a homicide by a couple of people, most notably the county coroner. And interestingly, Buster Murdaugh is mentioned dozens of times in the investigation. Also, Alex Murdaugh and his brother Randy visited the crime scene, passing through the crime scene tape, and there were rumors that Buster Murdaugh and Stephen Smith were in some kind of relationship, and this case actually just got reopened after the entire Alex Murdaugh investigation. So that's all a bit peculiar. That doesn't seem good. Something smells very fishy over there with Buster Murdaugh, and he's not the only one. In fact, Alex Murdaugh's other son, Paul. In 2019, Paul and his friends were partying on a boat. At one point, his friends say Paul and his girlfriend got in an argument where Paul assaulted her, and then eventually the night culminated with the boat crashing, everyone surviving except one person, Mallory Beach. Paul was blamed for the death because he was fucking driving the boat. He received 2 charges, 1 boating under the influence causing great bodily harm, and 1 boating under the influence causing death. So as you can see, the Murdaugh family is known for more than just financial crimes. There's a lot of death linked to the family as well. And there's still more. There's still one that I haven't even talked about, one that happened before Alex Murdaugh killed his son and wife. In 2018, their housekeeper Gloria Satterfield allegedly tripped over one of their dogs and fell down the stairs and died at their hunting lodge. Alex Murdaugh then instructed Gloria Satterfield's sons to sue him for insurance money. However, he neglected to inform them that he had already collected on 2 settlements and basically robbed them of about $4.3 million from the insurance here. The man is just pure evil, just a shriveled, pruny, fucking ghost-looking motherfucker whose entire bloodline seems cursed and is nothing but bad news. It is disgusting.
His lawyer said he planned to sue Alex and Maggie personally, because they allegedly kept a beer refrigerator at the hunting lodge and underage kids were free to drink up. Given the scale of Alex's financial crimes, discovery of his assets would have revealed years of Murdaugh's criminality. Later that same night, Alex allegedly found Paul and Maggie dead outside the kennels at the Murdaugh's sprawling hunting estate.
I'm really trying to break this down into the most concise form possible just to convey like the general story of the situation, but again, I can't recommend checking out Legal Eagle's full video on it for the absolute best breakdown. In a nutshell, years and years and millions upon millions of dollars of stolen money and financial crimes were about to be brought to light, all of which Alex Murdaugh was panicked about. So the main theory behind his motive for killing Paul and his wife Maggie is he needed some way of buying time to weasel his way out of this situation. I shit you not. The murder of his son Paul and wife Maggie, right now the leading theory is he did it for sympathy, to portray himself as a victim, and to basically just buy himself some extra time to get out of the situation, because all of these financial crimes that had built up over years were about to be fucking blasted publicly. All of it was going to come to light. So that was his plan. Now, Paul was murdered before he ever stood trial for the death of Mallory Beach. But I'm getting a little ahead of the story because there was one other baffling situation that occurred involving a hired hitman that Alex himself hired to shoot and kill him so his other son could get his insurance money.
So Alex admitted to stealing from Chris and blamed his behavior on an opioid addiction. And then hours later, that same day after that conversation with Chris, Alex was shot in the head. Yes. Seriously. Does this seem like a far-fetched Netflix series yet?
So, now we're at the part that I know. Everything that preceded this, fucking wild. No clue. But now we're getting into the part that my dad was talking about, and now I'm kind of in the know on where all this goes. Chat just educated me about this, so I have the spoilers here. But I guess I won't drop the spoilers. But I see now what has happened and how things have got to this point.
Yes, but I mean, I'm okay.
Alex later admitted that he hired his cousin Eddie to shoot him. So Alex's remaining son Buster could
get the life
collect on a
insurance.
$10 million life insurance policy. But apparently cousin Eddie wasn't up to the job because the gunshot
Good picture.
wound was
National
just a blaze
Lampoon.
that temporarily blinded Alex. Eddie would also turn out to be Alex's oxycodone dealer. Alex later admitted that he stole from his law partners and clients to fund his addiction to painkillers. According to
And then my dad's calling me about the Murdoch shit that I just sent him with this. Hold on. Yeah, well, did you even know about all of the Murdoch shit with his family? Like how his son is most likely responsible for deaths as well?
Yes.
You
And his son, like, was in the boat accident.
yeah, the boat.
Yeah, the whole deal. I mean, yeah, I know all the background of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then how he tried to set up, like, his own...
Yeah, I just got to that point. Cousin Eddie to, like, a hitman to shoot him for the life insurance policy for Buster.
Yeah, and then they fucked that whole thing up.
Okay, I didn't know if you knew any of that because you didn't mention it. That shit's crazy.
Well, see, that's why I haven't been playing any games. I got so into this shit. I'm like, I can't stop. It's like, see, that's why I said this is 10 times better than the goddamn O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely wild. I had no idea it was like so deep reaching.
I know. See, that's what I'm telling you. So you think it's pretty cool, right?
Well, cool is like probably a weird word to use for it, but like it's fascinating. Like it feels like it's some kind of crazy movie. Yeah, he's really into the whole Murdoch shit. He got like encyclopedic knowledge on this whole thing apparently. He didn't even mention the family stuff, so I thought that'd be news to him. Yeah, no, this whole family's rotten. Although I haven't heard anything about the mother, so maybe she didn't do anything terrible. I have no idea.
for violent schemes.
Real quick though, was his plan actually to die? Like, did Alex Murdaugh hire cousin Eddie, goofball McGee, red-blooded patriot, fucking wild maniac to come shoot him and kill him? That's wild. So his plan was actually to die. He said, come shoot me in the head. And then he survived. He's like, damn it. Time to change plan. Wow. Hey, a lot of things can be said about Alex Murdaugh, but God damn it, he gave it 110%. This man was ready to literally kill himself so that way his son could still have some fucking cheated funds. $10 million life insurance policy.
The drug dealer. The trial's biggest bombshell was an unsent Snapchat
Yes,
video
this is the one that my dad was talking about.
Alex told police he had last seen his son and wife 90 minutes before he found their bodies. Several witnesses testified that they could hear Alex's voice in the background of the video.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth!
Did the Snapchat video influence Alex's decision to testify on his own behalf? Almost certainly yes. The very first
yeah, and I think that is very clearly his voice in the Snapchat video. Very clearly.
Alex did on the witness stand was fess up that he lied about being at the kennels. Alex admitted it was his voice on the video.
Were you in fact at the kennels at 8:44 p.m. on the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
I was.
Did you?
So then he absolutely just admits to a lie right there. I do want to point out, this man's got some wild hair coloration here. This looks like a weird slider in a Dark Souls creator. He looks like a French fry with like some cheese sauce on the top. That shit is going hard.
You lied to SLED Agent Owen and Deputy Laura Rutland on the night of June 7th.
I did lie to them, and I'm so sorry that I did.
Other than lying to them about going to the kennel, I was very
Holy
cooperative
shit.
in every aspect of this investigation. When Alex's brother Randy overheard Alex trying to bribe a nurse to let him use her phone, he thought it was suspicious. And brother Randy called the police and the story began to unravel.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
SLED sketch artist. And spent...
Man, this guy just straight up looks evil. He looks actually soulless. Those are some hollow, empty devil eyes right there. 100%. Sometimes people just look the part.
But in an earlier interview with investigators, Alex had actually implicated his groundskeeper. He also told the jury that someone angry about the death of Mallory Beach committed the murders. These inconsistencies undermined Alex's credibility. Then there's the mess with Alex's financial crimes. The prosecution argued that Alex's financial crimes couldn't be separated from the murders because exposure of his vast financial crimes was one of the motives
speaks to his
for killing
characters.
Maggie and Paul.
Well, not only that, I imagine that also helps to demonstrate, like, make a character profile, right? I don't know if that is actually something that's usable in court, but doesn't that also serve to poke holes in the credibility since all of these financial crimes hinged on a bunch of lies and embezzlement and all of that? Or is that not allowed?
Every single one of these, you had to sit down and look someone in the eye and convince them that you were on their side when you were not.
Wow, that's hardball.
Do you remember even one of them?
If you ask me questions, but I can't remember sitting down with Dion.
Alex's response? What I admit is I misled them. I did wrong, and that I stole their money. What Prosecutor Waters was getting at was this. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Alex Murdaugh is sitting there and looking at you in the eye to convince you of something, but you shouldn't believe him. Just look at how he lied in the past.
That's
Moreover,
strong
Alex
as fuck.
testified that all of his financial bad deeds were caused by his drug habit, which was costing him as much as $60,000 a week. As for the weapons, prosecutors said casings for bullets from a .300 Blackout rifle were found near Maggie's body. And the Murdaughs owned a rifle chambered in .300 Blackout, and the weapon is now missing. Alex also couldn't account for the clothing he was wearing on the day of the murders. His clothes had never been found. His mother's caregiver testified that after the murders, Alex tried to remind her about what he was wearing.
I guess it's easy in hindsight, but I feel like even if I was in the court as this was unfolding, the second it came to that point, both of those in conjunction, I'd be like, well, he fucking did it. What kind of coincidence is that? Oh, so they were killed with .300 Blackout rounds. Oh, you have a weapon with .300 Blackout. That's a weird coincidence. Can you bring it in so we can just make sure like everything's, all good? Oh, it's missing. Well, what happened to it? Oh, you don't know. Oh. Okay, well, what about your clothes? Can we, like the clothes you were wearing on that night, maybe they picked up some forensic evidence from the real killers. Oh, you lost your clothes. Are you telling me a burglar came in the middle of the night while you were sleeping and took the fucking clothes off your back? Even your dirty goddamn undies, he took them? Oh. Like, what the fuck? This is outrageous.
The speed of the jury's verdict, just 3 hours of deliberation
Oh,
after
nice.
a trial lasting a month and a half.
That's a gold split.
Speaks volumes.
Yeah.
The day after the verdict was read, Alex Murdaugh was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences for murdering his wife and son.
I'll be honest, I don't usually cover topics like what I'm about to touch on today because it's extremely serious. Usually the stuff I cover is things to point and laugh at, throw tomatoes at, say boo, stinky, yucky, boo. Not this. This is horrifying. It's a story I haven't seen a ton of people mention, and I myself didn't know about it until a few nights ago where just some random chatter during stream mentioned it. And I looked it up, and the information was only a few minutes old. Like, I don't even know how that guy had access to it so quickly, unless he's like one of the chief investigators on the case that just typed it in the chat. But when I looked it up there wasn't a ton of specifics mentioned about the case. but I followed it over the last few days as more and more information has come to the public eye. It is truly evil. And to my knowledge, this is the first case where a live stream was used as an alibi in a murder case or anything of that magnitude. There, of course, has been cases like with Facebook live streams and even YouTube a couple times where horrible atrocities were committed live, but I think this is the only time that someone has tried to use a live stream to prove their innocence and act as a smokescreen to cover up their crimes. Now, the person I'm about to talk about hasn't been found guilty yet, but they have been charged with murder with overwhelming evidence. Extremely compelling and strong evidence. On December 18th in Ireland, a woman named Natalie McNally was stabbed to death in her own home. She was 15 weeks pregnant at the time of her death. And the person accused of the murder is a man named Stephen McCullough. He is a YouTuber as well as streamer. He mainly focused on toy reviews as far as I can tell, specifically seeming to be a big Doctor Who toy reviewer. So what happened is, on the night of Natalie McNally's murder, Stephen McCullough went live on his channel. And this live stream is still up right now. It's a 6-hour live stream. And this was crucial evidence to prove his innocence on this evening. Because how could McCullough have possibly killed someone when there's proof of him streaming from his home at the same time that the murder had taken place? So they eventually, after bringing him in initially on suspicion of being involved in this case, let him go, because this live stream did serve as a pretty good alibi for him. Plus, this wasn't just streamed to 0 viewers, there were real sentient human beings with a pulse there to watch this stream, so should any of this information ever come to light, there would be a lot of witnesses saying, no, I was watching him stream, he was 100% at home. So that was his whole plan. And while this worked for a brief period of time getting him out of suspicion, it was an ephemeral victory because after the investigators combed through about 4,000 hours worth of CCTV footage, they kind of pinned his whole location. They got his whole itinerary here. They were able to track him around and follow him around like it was a fucking Sims character. So not only did they see him through the CCTV evidence, but they also have the account of the taxi driver. They even took notice of things like a yellow glove underneath a black glove while giving change to a bus driver. And with all of this, they had a really strong case against him being the murderer. But they still had that live stream to explain. Because again, there is a live stream that did span the entire course where all of this took place. So how the fuck does this happen? You know, is he David Copperfield? Like, what, 2 places at once? Is this some kind of prestige situation where he had like a twin or a clone of himself? The actual answer is it's far simpler than you would possibly ever think. The live stream was fake. Yes, the stream went live on his channel during this whole period of time, but it wasn't actually a live stream. It was a pre-recorded video that Stephen McCullough had recorded days prior in order to look like a live stream, to mimic a live stream, so that way it could be used as an alibi for him. And when you watch the live stream, which again is still up on his channel, there are so many alarming red flag moments throughout it, even from the get-go. So he mentions at the very beginning of this live stream that he's not going to be able to read chat for a variety of technical reasons. One of them being it would crash his computer, it'd freeze the computer, it'd ruin the whole stream because of all of these deep tech problems that he couldn't solve. Everything's gone cattywampus, so he won't be able to read your chat. More like, Doctor, who's talking? Because I can't see you, I'm not reading chat. He just keeps reiterating over and over and over again that there's going to be no chat interaction. Because obviously, since this is a pre-recorded thing, there is no chat for him to read or interact with.
Well, because this streaming software is kind of up the left, it means I can't check the live chat, which is a real shame. Can't look at the live chat for some bloody reason, because if I do, it makes the whole thing freeze and OBS just screws up.
And he just kept like explaining why he can't read chat, and then he started talking about like, well, I guess I could read it on my phone, but you know, I get addicted to TikTok when I'm on my phone, and that's a mess, so I've put my phone in timeout in another room, so I won't be reading chats there either, and that'd probably ruin my internet too anyway, so no chat tonight. You guys can talk amongst yourself. I don't even like live streamers who read chat, so no chat for me tonight. There's plenty of streamers who don't interact with chat, but to go this long and this in-depth on things that make absolutely no fucking sense whatsoever to explain why you're not going to be reading chat or reacting to donations is definitely a little odd. And there's plenty of other really alarming moments about this stream, especially looking back on it in hindsight. He keeps reiterating that he's live, you know, this is live, and he's staying inside all night. He talks about like drinking and driving, and he'd never drink and drive, which is why he's staying inside, drinking on stream live for his viewers to enjoy. He's playing GTA Vice City throughout the stream, and he's making comments about like how the police force is no longer like equipped to handle cases, and there's a rise in crime. It's in the real world he's talking about. It's all very fucking alarming stuff, but by far the scariest thing he says has to be this.
Yeah, that's physics. That's what would happen in the real world. Abso-fucking-notly. Abso-fucking-notly.
Completely out of nowhere, unprompted, he mentions someone named Natalie in a pretty menacing way. And once again, there's plenty of other things he says in here that are very scary, but I think this one is by far the worst moment. This has been 100% confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt to be a fake live stream. When authorities seized some possessions, they found the actual video itself and concluded that it was filmed on December 13th or 14th. And also, McCullough himself has confirmed that the live stream was not actually live, it was pre-recorded, but insists that he was actually just drinking by himself alone that night. He completely denies the murder and insists that someone else may have been dropped off in a taxi near his home. This is referring to the CCTV evidence that they've gathered, pinpointing all of his locations throughout the evening. There's also other awful shit here as well. McCullough stayed pretty close to Natalie McNally's parents, and in one case even left his phone over at their house in order to like bug them and secretly spy on them to record their conversations to see if he was a suspect. So McCullough went to the McNally house, left his phone on record, and left, but returned 40 minutes later claiming to have forgotten it, and police were saying that this was an attempt to listen into their conversations to see if they suspected him of anything in this. I can't envision a world where Stephen McCullough is not the person who committed this crime. There is just an overwhelming amount of evidence against him. And he still doesn't have a real explanation for what the possible motive to faking the live stream would even be. Nothing that makes sense, at least. And then randomly dropping Natalie's name during it. I just cannot imagine that this man is innocent, but he hasn't been found fully guilty of being the murderer yet. But yeah, overall, a horrifying situation. I'm wishing the absolute best for the McNally family, and I'm hoping justice is served here. That's about it. See ya.